Hey guys, it's Dagnar. I have a rather interesting topic I want to discuss with you all today. Most of us started out with MMOs in generally the same way, wet behind our ears, not knowing what each of the classes did or what an endgame even was. We were just oblivious, ignorant, and full of bliss. Just happy to see our fresh character moving around in the world. I started in the early 2000s with RuneScape, a game that was regarded more as a chat room than an MMO, but I was absolutely hooked. I remember fishing lobsters and talking to other noobs around me for hours on end with anything and everything while our inventory slowly filled up with fish. Even in this early time of MMOs, you had a couple of the more sweaty individuals. Zezma was a household name for anyone who knew anything about RuneScape, but the majority of us played with a little more relaxed focus on the social aspects of the game. It was just a few years later when World of Warcraft was released. I had played a fair bit of StarCraft and Diablo, but never touched the Warcraft IP. I was amazed at the 3D models and the customization that was allowed. You damn well know I started with a Night Elf Hunter. It wasn't until years later, near the end of Cataclysm, when I realized I had lost that initial spark of what made playing MMOs great. I no longer felt any connection to the players around me. I fell into an endless rotation of just raids and getting gear, but with no satisfaction or adventure to be had. What was the point of playing a video game like this? I was fortunate enough to break out of Warcraft before it fell into some dark times in the expansions to follow. But enough about childish whimsy and perspective long missed. Let's get on with it.
So anyways, let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
So where did all of this go wrong, and how is Ashes going to fix this issue? When did the average gamer lose sight of why they got into MMOs in the first place? Recently, MMOs have been trying to relive those days of old with games such as WoW Classic or old school RuneScape, but have ultimately failed to hit the mark. People still trying to rush to endgame and skip all that leveling. The leveling is no longer considered an adventure, but just a chore. This max efficiency mentality has sunk into the MMO player base and infected it like a virus. Let's look at a couple of ways Ashes is going to try to fix this mentality and bring us into a new era of MMO greatness. To start, the node system is going to ensure that meta grinding spots will be constantly changing. The nodes you level with at the launch of the game may not even be there when a new player begins their adventure. This design aspect alone is game-changing. Imagine a game like RuneScape coming back to finding Lumbridge, the starting zone, has either been leveled to the ground, or that it has grown so much that endgame world bosses are starting to patrol nearby. That grinding spot you spent at the beginning of the game may now be controlled by roaming elite mobs, or even transformed into a dungeon entrance that goes deep underground to a new raid. How are players going to be able to get max experience rates despite having an ever-changing world? In short, you'll have to return to the roots of MMO gaming and play it like it's an adventure and not a chore. You will need to find a group of individuals who you can socialize with to take on new dangers in an ever-evolving world. Another aspect that will throw a wrench into that max efficiency mindset is gating levels behind access to appropriately leveled nodes. On release, the developers anticipate max level will take around 7 weeks, at about maybe 4 to 6 hours a day. Combine that with metro nodes taking many weeks, this means you're going to be waiting for a lot of time if you only focus on rushing to max level. This is going to mean that during these lulls in leveling cadence, there will be time to do things. You can explore the world, level your professions, or do open world content like sieges, caravans, or guild wars. We've all been there. You have work or school early in the morning, a certain boss is spawning right at 2 AM, you can't miss it, or else that shiny new piece of gear is going to someone else. Or maybe it's your weekly raid of a dungeon you've done hundreds of times with no real challenge or stimulation. You don't feel like you're on a heroic quest or a noble journey. This just feels like a chore, and sometimes you wonder why you even bother. In Ashes of Creation, world bosses are going to feel like a breath of fresh air. They're going to be challenging to players, and here's a few ways. For one, you won't necessarily be waiting until max level to be able to take on these titans. but instead we know lower level nodes will allow these behemoths to spawn as well. Tumok the Wretched, as shown in the May 2023 livestream, he's a level 30 wandering boss that spawns in the Riverlands. This is especially important because with how previous tier mats will always be useful for higher tier crafts, accessing these rare materials from a world boss of any level will be extremely sought after and needed. Another challenge the players will face are actually difficult mechanics in otherwise lower level bosses like Tumok. From the wiki, we can see that this mid-level boss has 17 unique mechanics in 3 phases. That's right, 17 unique mechanics. This is far removed from the 3 to 4 mechanics you would expect to see on a boss outside of endgame raids in a game like World of Warcraft. Finally, the tag-in versus flagging mechanic is going to be another extra dimension of difficulty that players will have to face with these world bosses at all levels. Let's say that 2 rival groups are trying to hunt this boss. You have a few options. You could try to kill them during the boss, a high-risk, high-reward option that potentially kills the group quickly, but you might gain corruption yourself. You could also take the middle approach. You go purple, or combatant, to weaken the enemy ranks to let the boss finish them, or their healers of all their mana. But this also risks the enemy collapsing on you. The final option is to try to out-tag the rival team and skip PvP entirely. Doing so, you actually can try to steal the kill by doing a certain amount of damage relative to the other group. According to the wiki, you need approximately a 5 to 10% edge over the other group to steal their tag. These 3 scenarios are how Ashes is going to stand out at all levels of bossing. Gone are the days of getting the first tag and having complete prio on a boss regardless of how many other groups are nearby. You'll have to think about what scenario you are in. Can your raid outlast the other group and take a longer fight, or should you attempt to end it early? My final attempt to persuade you why Ashes is the beginning of a return to MMO greatness is how each server is going to be unique and a completely different play experience from each other. You won't be able to watch a video of a dungeon that drops a cool set of armor and go there on your server unless both that server and your own had the exact same nodes leveled in the same exact areas. This is going to force players to have to find their own adventure, play the game how it's intended without following ultimate YouTube guides. Try to think of the last time you just went out into the world of MMO just for fun. Are you going to get the best experience rates or the highest gold profits? Probably not, but you're going to make lasting memories with your node and guildmates along the way as you play in an ever-evolving world. If you're looking for a new game to sink your teeth into, and one that has potential to actually last, I highly urge you to just periodically check in on Ash's monthly updates. See the potential for yourself. I will be trying to highlight periodic updates of what's to be expected from Ashes during its development. And I thank you for watching. Dagnar out.